All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tomorrow. We are joined by Lena De Winne. She is the Deputy Head of Administration of Asgardia, and we're going to be talking about this amazing adventure, what they're doing, and how you can join. All right. Stay tuned for Tomorrow 12.06.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
All right, hey everybody, welcome to Tomorrow. We've got Jared over here. He is one of our astronomers. We have Lena De Winne, and your title is quite a lovely title, and I would not do it justice. But you, oh, and my name is Sarah, but I'm not important. What's really important is Asgardia, and so we're going to be talking.
You got it right.
All right. See? Okay,
Nice.
So this is going to be great. So could you tell us what is Asgardia? For those few of us who don't know, what is it? What are you doing?
Asgardia is the first in the world history space nation. It was founded by Dr. Igor Ashurbeli on the 12th of October 2016. It is inclusive for all. As you can see on the poster next to me is our coat of arms, one humanity, one unity. And it is for prosperous, peaceful settlement of entire humanity in space in the future, starting now.
This is a lovely, worthy goal. All right. So what is your role at Asgardia? As the Deputy Head of Administration?
I have a position of Deputy Head of Administration to the Head of Nation of Asgardia.
So, as Deputy Head, so you're making Asgardia happen, right? You are.
I'm privileged enough to be in the core team who started it from the very beginning, and indeed I'm one of the people at the moment who are pushing it forward and do work with community and on international level and with media communication as it's happening right now.
So how did Asgardia start? I mean, we've all talked about leaving the planet and, you know, during some presidencies going to Canada for Americans. So how did Asgardia become a real thing?
Well, it's all the result of the decades of thinking and ultimately the solution put forward by Dr. Ashurbeli. He has the legacy and the history of developing various systems in aerospace for decades, and then ultimately his current stage in life as a private businessman and a scientist who won a lot of international awards was to bring together his lifetime of work and experience. And that's how he came up with the idea of forming the space nation. We talked with international space lawyers, we talked to lots of high-level professionals, and of course the first reaction is somewhat, you people are crazy. But actually when you look into it, it works, because to be a nation, first of all, you actually don't have any legal grounds. Three of us can be a nation if we have a unique idea which brings us together. When it comes to being a state, you need to meet certain criteria. One of the criteria is having the surface of the country. But there is no law, apart from the law of gravity, which actually keeps the surface of the country to the surface of the planet Earth. So our sovereign territory is a satellite. It is flying on a low Earth orbit, and there is no law by which I, as a citizen of Asgardia, am obliged to reside in its territory. The same like you, I presume, being Americans, are not actually obliged to be residing in America. It just happens to be the case. There is no law by which the size of the country needs to be big enough to host its entire population at any given moment. So we do have national territory. It happens to be orbiting the Earth. And it is carrying the data of Asgardians who chose to send any kind of data they wanted to send when we launched.
That is...
Then you have government, you have parliament. I can give you a very long story, but we can cut it in pieces if you want to ask questions.
Okay. Well, so how does I know that on your website you have a breakdown of how you can become a citizen, and once you are a citizen, you can become a participant in the government. Could you tell me about your government and how that works?
Oh, In the case of government specifically, indeed, you need to become an Asgardian. For that, you go to asgardia.space. You go there in any case because it's a wonderful site with a lot of good information, and that's how you join Asgardia and meet other Asgardians. If you meet certain requirements, which are described in the Constitution, you find it on the website, you can apply to be in the government. We currently still have some vacancies, actually. The government is not yet fully formed. It's close to completion, but actually, good people do go to the website. We are still looking for 3 ministers, and they should be selected soon. So by going through all the procedures, by filling out your application, by accepting the Constitution, the person who meets the requirements outlined in the articles of the Constitution pertinent to the government, you can apply for jobs. Indeed, you're very welcome to do so. I encourage everybody who shares the goal, the vision, and the mission of Asgardia to join and to apply for high-level positions. We are looking for excellent people to make the future work together.
Wow. That's a really good pitch. All right. So,
and we do have a question from our chat room from Destructor 1701, which actually is kind of multiple questions from people in our chat room.
Right.
Which is asking, Kingdom of Asgardia. Is there a specific reason why you describe yourselves as the Kingdom of Asgardia? Is it related to government, or is it more just like a aesthetic choice in using that word?
I rather would use the word philosophic choice. It's twofold. One thing is inspired by the fact that European states, which are the leading world democracies, are actually constitutional monarchies. So in terms of the prototype which exists on Earth, we have very good examples in Western Europe, which countries are monarchies, and yet they're shaping the future in the most advanced and leading way. The other thing is that today nobody knows what's better, federation, confederation, presidential republic. There are a variety of details which only high-level experts can tell the difference in, and only experience will show what's more relevant once the work is ongoing. So if we, at the beginning, were to choose parliamentary republic, presidential republic, I'm just saying something for the sake of saying it, then changing it in 5 years would be not so, or in 10 or in 50, I don't know, but it would be too tight, too narrow. It requires a lot of speciality. When we say kingdom, kingdom is the breadth of action, the freedom of movement. People can live in this whole notion of kingdom, of childhood dream, going to space, romance. There is a lot of archetypes in the concept of the kingdom. And yet, in a very solid sense, it's giving an opportunity, when it's more clear what's more efficient for running such a unique nation, to hold eventually a referendum and to consider reforming it into a different kind of state. Nobody precludes it. And kingdom makes it fairy tale-like appealing on the one side and giving an opportunity to advance with it in a much easier way in the future if necessary.
okay.
Very, very cool.
So, do you have a king at the moment?
We have the head of nation, and according to our constitution, his title is the same as the title of his counterpart in whichever country he goes. So if he goes to meet a president, he's a president. If he's going to meet prime minister, he is prime minister. If he's going to meet the king or a queen, he is the king. So he, as far as Asgard is concerned, it's the head of nation, and the constitution allows to choose the title to reciprocate the level of engagement.
All right. So now you mentioned earlier that the founder had an idea of what our Asgardia would be. Could you tell me what we can expect Asgardia to become and why, what its history is?
Well, again, that's a very long story. Depends how much into detail we are willing to go at this
We're
stage.
geeks. We like details.
The history so far is, like I said, we have met all the requirements for statehood. We have the territory, the population, the democratically elected government, the constitution, which is adopted by the voting. I believe 73% of the population voted in support. We have the elected head of nation. We had inauguration of the head of nation. We, according to the constitution, we have all the three branches of power which make a democratic state. So we have parliament, government, and judicial power. So all this is in place. So in terms of history, the whole infrastructure has already been established. to be qualifying as a state. In terms of the perspective, we are looking to achieve bilateral recognition with different states in the world. We already have held some informal consultations with some countries. I cannot yet tell you the names, they were informal, but we also are looking to complete the official formation of the Cabinet of Ministers. And then soon after that, I expect this year, when hopefully we have Minister of Foreign Affairs up and running in the government, this will be taken to the next formal level. So in a way, you can say that we, in some way, go by the model of Israel, because Israel also started by achieving bilateral recognitions. And then eventually, by achieving recognition, at some point you become a member of the United Nations.
All right.
That's in the societal sense. If we talk about economy and technology, we already have a Minister of Economy who is setting up forward the business development possibilities for the companies who want to register their businesses in jurisdiction of Asgardia. We are open to receiving startup proposals. We are open to funding promising startup proposals. We have the budget, which has been presented by the Minister of Finance and accepted by the Parliament in the recent session. We have digital parliament sittings. We are the only ones in the world who actually do digital parliament sittings, and you can read all about it online. The reports are published, and the legislation our parliament accepts is published once it is voted in. And what else? Technologically, currently we have a Asgardia 1 satellite. It was very nice. You've shown the picture. Indeed, it was part of the assembly line. And it is floating around the Earth, or circling the Earth, orbiting the Earth, rather, I would say. And we are developing a constellation of the satellites, which will be meeting various technological needs of people on Earth. One of the things of Asgardia is that space should belong to everyone, and every citizen on Earth should benefit from space exploration. Today, there are about 20 countries in the world who have their own space programs. And rightfully so, understandably so, it's happening with their taxpayers' money. They create opportunities for their own citizens. But at the same time, there is an outer space treaty from 1967 to which over 100 countries are signatories, which says that space belongs to all and that space should be used exclusively for peaceful purposes. So I'm not going to detour far at the moment into the recent proposals of the American presidents to militarize space. That's not the subject of our program. So Asgard believes that we should actually practice what we preach, and space for peaceful purposes should benefit every person on Earth. And there are services which can be provided to space and made available to every citizen. And Asgardia is looking to launch a constellation of satellites that would then provide, for example, internet or protection from outer space threats. There are meteorites, there are asteroids, which it doesn't matter where you're born. If it hits you on the head, it hurts equally the same, no matter if you're in America, in Africa, or in Antarctica, for that matter. So we are looking to indeed benefit humanity in a variety of service ways. And ultimately, the goal is settlement on the moon, because we can refer to the old thinkers, visionaries, philosophers who in the 20th and even in the 19th century, if we go back to Jules Verne, have said that we need to fly to the moon. We're getting to the reality. We are going beyond the boundaries of what's already been explored. The Earth has been explored. We need to find the new settlements opportunities. We need to find places where maybe to mine for new resources. We need to study how humanity in general, fingers crossed, but if something goes very wrong, we need to survive. Imagine a huge meteorite, a huge asteroid hits the Earth, and what's then? We hope people, at least humanity as species, survives. Hopefully it never happens, and it remains just a job and tourism destination, but you never know. So we are looking to create space station with artificial gravity, because at the moment, the International Space Station, it's microgravity, lack of gravity almost. It's one thing, because when you go away from the Earth, you lose gravity, and it has its benefits. But in terms of long-term survival, you actually need gravity, because it's how our bodies are built. We are adapted throughout the evolution to work under gravity. So there is no yet space platform which has artificial gravity. And we are very interested, and that's one of the long-term goals, to have a space station, which Dr. Shurbeli calls Space Ark, the title inspired by Noah's Ark, which will have artificial gravity, and that will be the first ever space platform which has gravity. And ultimately, that brings to settlement on the moon. And in settlement on the moon, that's one of our beautiful artistic images. We love our artist who helps us visualize our glamorous future. So indeed, we envisage that still in our lifetime, people settle on the moon. Dr. Shurbeli himself has a track record of lifetime achievements, and he himself, as a system engineer, says in his speeches that he sets goals which he's sure he would see through in his lifetime. So he expects definitely that within about 25 years, there will be Asgardia settlement on the moon.
Wow.
And ultimately, there should be the first baby born off the surface of the planet Earth. For this, of course, we need to create artificial gravity. For this, we need to create conditions which are familiar to human body. So our goal is to have the first human born off the surface of the planet Earth, Asgardian.
Wow. These, again,
That's quite ambitious,
right?
I gotta say.
These are all goals that we share.
Why would you want it any other way but ambitious?
No. I love it.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you're not ambitious, you're not pushing the envelope. So,
as we like to say in Merca, go big or go home.
Yes. So we do have
let's say go big or go to space.
That too. I like
space
that.
Is home, right?
You can get even bigger there.
So Launchpad Astronomy, who's watching on YouTube, is asking, do you consider yourselves dual citizens of both Asgardia and your country of residence?
And that's an excellent question. Many people address it. According to the Constitution of Asgardia, the citizenship of Asgardia is defined as unique in its space nature. So by our constitution, it's not a dual citizenship. The citizenship of the earthly country, the country of origin, remains as is. And we, by offering Asgardian citizenship, are not entering the earthly situation of a double citizenship. It's not the case.
So you have an Earth citizenship and Asgardia space citizenship, and they're two distinct things.
And these are two distinct things. And then let me say a few more words about it to make sure that people understand that we're being very serious about it.
Yeah.
Today, we are offering residency. Because today, what effectively is citizenship? Citizenship is something which can be symbolized through giving you a passport. Passport has a purpose of traveling. Today, when we have not yet achieved any formal bilateral recognition, this passport is nice to have, but you cannot yet use it for a specific purpose. Our goal is to make sure that with the passport of Asgardia, with the countries where we have bilateral relationship, people can cross the border using the passport of Asgardia. So the symptoms of citizenship, if you wish, they're still to come. So today, when we talk about as close as possible affiliation with Asgardia, we talk about being a resident. That's realistically what it is. So as a resident who registered, accepted the constitution, paid the fee, we have annual fee of 100 euros for those who wish to pay it. Those who don't wish to pay it, they don't pay it, but then, they cannot use the entirety of services. So today, as a resident, you have a number of benefits, and that also includes the possibility to apply for the jobs in Asgardia.
Okay.
Interesting.
Whew. Okay. This is a lot to wrap our head around. Our heads. It's the royal we. So we've got, you've got money. You've got money coming in. We do have one question from Ukrainian. Do you have banks?
We will. At the moment, this is part of the infrastructure which is being set up. And I don't need to get here a bit ahead of myself. Like I said, we have Minister of Finance. He has recently spoke in Davos in Caspian Week, where he presented the financial strategy of Asgardia. If you go to our website, asgardia.space, and look at the news Asgardia at Davos, you would see a lot of detailed information about the financial approach. But ultimately, and it's also defined by the Constitution, there is a national currency of Asgardia. It's called Solar. Well, inspired by the sun.
Okay.
And it's still being defined. And recently we completed the online questionnaire, let's say. People were offered to express their opinion to which 12 currencies on Earth solar should be referenced to. So all this information you also find on our website.
Amazing. Okay.
Interesting. So we do have a question from Raoul Crusette in our chat room, which is asking if the CubeSat, which if I remember correctly is called Asgardia 1, is still in orbit. And I kind of want to throw on there, do you guys look at with the CubeSat, it's sort of like, do you look at that as like territory of Asgardia?
Indeed. The CubeSat is still in orbit, and that's what we spoke about a few minutes back. It's a 2U CubeSat, so it means 2 cubic decimeters. And yes, it's like a loaf of bread, you can say that. But nobody said that the country has to be huge. And so it is in orbit. And if you want to know exactly where it is, you go, I'm sorry to repeat myself, to asgardia.space. One of the key features on our website is the map. And on that map, you see the trajectory and you see where the satellite is. So it's not just an artistic impression. That's a tracker which shows you the exact location of the satellite. If you click on the icon, you will see the data from the satellite. And if you click further through, you will see a lot of data from that satellite.
All right. So we've got a question from Raj Luthra on YouTube, and it's a question I've been wondering too. It's how and where will Asgardia get the resources? You've got all of these amazing space stations and lunar bases planned. Or it's going to be complete barter system, or how are you going to be obtaining the resources to get this done?
Well, if you mean how the funding will go, I can again repeat, please go to asgardia.space, look at the Davos speech by Mr. Leon Spilsky, who is our Minister of Finance. He talks there in detail about the business models which will be put forward in our economic system. But in a grand sense, in very big picture, until now, everything has been funded privately by Dr. Shurbeli. We have some limited income coming from the residence fee, but the major source of revenue will be formed through the business development, business economics, which are defined in the presentations by Mr. Spilsky.
All right.
Interesting.
Okay. So, all right. This one's been my question since I first heard of Asgardia. Asgardia is a really lofty name. Could you tell me why that name was picked, and if you are drawing parallels between the land of the Norse gods, or anything you'd like to tell me about the name and the goals of Asgardia?
Absolutely, you got it right, Sarah. It's inspired by the ancient mythological kingdom of Asgard, because since old days when people thought that the earth was flat, they still were thinking and visualizing as a dream living in the skies. And that's exactly that. People were thinking that it's so wonderful to live in the skies, that it's so wonderful to go off the surface of the planet. And indeed, they have imagined the mythological city of gods. What we're saying is that it's actually for humans. Everybody can live in the skies. And that's exactly the connection which was drawn by Dr. Shurbeli, who proposed this title. Again, it's a result of his thinking and his vision.
So we've got a really interesting question from Heliopausing in our chat room here, which is asking, do you have an embassy down here on Earth? And I kind of want to add on to that. Is there a way, like an actual physical place you can go to that allows you to interact with Asgardia here on Earth?
We are on the way, and actually here on Earth, it sounds lovely. Thank you, the lovely person who asked this question in those wonderful terms. There will be 6 embassies of Asgardia per continent. One of the philosophical premises of Asgardia is that boundaries are only in our minds and on the maps. If you go to space and if you look down on Earth, you only see the shapes of the continents. So the only real boundaries are the boundaries which are formed by the evolution of the planet Earth. So in order to substantiate this thought, the embassies will be one in every continent. Then there will be consulates to make the citizenship services more practical. But again, this is still some months or a couple of years away, because embassies are a function of the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, and then consulates are the function of the embassies. We are still in the build-up phase. But Thank you for this excellent question, because yes, indeed, we want to establish a relationship with all the countries per continent and to bring forward and promote further the idea that it's one humanity, one unity. There are no borders, there are no boundaries. The only shapes are the natural shapes of the continents. It's all defined by the Constitution as well.
And because you're aiming to become a nation, there's a certain amount of, if I recall correctly, recognition that has to come from other nations around the world to sort of like make it officially official, or however you want to define that. What is Asgardia doing to make that happen, and what are some of the challenges that you're encountering as you're working towards this?
Well, first of all, sorry, let me correct you. We are a nation, like we discussed
Yeah,
at the beginning.
My
to
apologies.
be a nation, you don't need to meet any criteria. There is no legal requirement to being a nation. We are looking to be recognized as a state. And to be recognized as a state, it's a discretion of every other state to decide which other state they want to recognize and achieve bilateral agreements. The challenges are quite expected because, first of all, it's very innovative idea. So like every idea, it goes through the phases. Oh my God, this is crazy. Then, okay, that sounds familiar. And then, of course, it's always been there. We're somewhere at a stage between it is crazy, leaning towards it's becoming familiar. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And in 2.5 years, I think this is an excellent progress. And so the challenge is, of course, somebody has to be the first to sign up officially. So again, dear heads of nations of all states on earth, if you are watching us, you have a chance to enter history by becoming the first nation, the first state to sign bilateral agreement with Asgardia. We are committed to bring all countries to space on equal basis. We are committed to make sure that space is accessible to everybody. We are committed to allow all the scientists, all the researchers to have resources on board Asgardia crafts to perform their research. If today you are waiting for the top 20 with their own programs to include you, that's okay. This is the fact of life of today. We in Asgardia are for the best scientists in the world to work at the cutting edge of technology to make sure that the results of your research benefit the entire humanity. And I think that this is an interesting proposal to the countries who want to take forward their space exploration program and to take forward their national scientists and bring them to the international level.
Cool.
Excellent.
I know you were talking earlier, you mentioned earlier that there were 2 countries that you were in talks with about...
More than 2. There are, I said a couple. I'm being vague.
Okay.
I will keep being vague about it. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not asking
no
for
worries.
specifics. Not at all. I don't want to put you on the spot. I was just wondering if Asgardia has been generally fairly well accepted on the international level, or are you really fighting a lot of skepticism or dismissal?
Neither, because to be accepted, if we were internationally accepted, we would have had signed bilateral recognitions by now. It's not yet the case. Okay. We are in consultations. In terms of fighting, I would not put it in those terms at all. We have defined our vision, our goal, and the core team and people who have joined later, we have passionate belief into what we're working towards. We have nothing to fight against because we're working towards a goal. It's a question of people around us, how soon they will catch up with the fact that we are right. I'm sorry to put it in those blunt terms.
No, I love it. Thank you. All right, that's a really great perspective that I frequently need to work on myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just staying true to yourself.
Oh, you can call me anytime. I'll remind you that you're great.
I'm going to take you up on that.
Definitely.
All right. So we had another question from YouTube, Sploden on YouTube. He said, how does Asgardia plan to keep its focus on its goals rather than getting bogged down of terrestrial politics? I ad-libbed a little bit.
I have a fantastic answer in the Declaration of Unity, which is on the page 1 of our Constitution. One of the core points is that Asgardia doesn't interfere into earthly politics and expects reciprocity.
All right, that's
Right.
that's one way to do it. What about what about internally? Like how do you handle sort of like if obviously wildly different opinions amongst even maybe amongst your own parliamentary members? Is it handled sort of in the same way any other country would handle that?
I cannot tell you much about every other country. I'm not that experienced, but we do have as the chair of parliament, as the speaker of parliament, Mr. Lambert Erpik. He's a former British member of parliament. He's a former chair of the party of Welsh Labourists. He is an amazing person who really, his destiny brought him to us as well. His grandfather was a famous Estonian astronomer. So he himself, apart from being a politician with a 30-year career, he also has defended legislation in Britain about near-Earth object and protection of the Earth from space threats. So he joined Asgardia, and he has been elected as a Speaker of the Parliament. He's doing an excellent job of running the Parliament. In Parliament, by the Constitution, we have 150 members potentially. There are 150 seats. If you ask where does this number comes from, it's from the ultimate goal. Asgardia is meant to have population eventually of 150 million people. That's 2% of the population of Earth. And once we have 150 million people, that's it. So it's not supposed to grow beyond that. And so parliamentarians, ultimately 150 people, it's the 0 point something 1% of the entire ultimate population. So when we first opened the elections, it was about this time last year. There were 150 seats vacant. But remember, we spoke that there is no differentiation between countries. Boundaries are just in our heads. But naturally, the people are split by the languages they speak. It's a fact of life. We can't help it. So when people join Asgardia, we ask them to tell us what are their main languages, the first language and then maybe the second language. So again, if you look at asgardia.space, you will see that you can look at the population of Asgardia split by the country and split by the language. So the way the seats in the parliament were allocated were per language. So there are 12 main languages and 13th district for all the other language, which didn't make it to one full person. So when the elections were held, they were held per district. Every Asgardian could vote for up to 150 people. So everybody could vote for everybody. It was only for allocation of seats that the language principle was applied. And we ended up with close to 150 people. But then for some further evolution reasons, the number now is close to 130. Some people have taken up jobs in the government, so they obviously had to resign from the parliament to have jobs in the government because you're either in a legislative power and an executive power. A couple of people dropped for personal reasons. So, but ultimately we have a quorum. Again, the quorum is defined as more than 50%, so 50% plus one from the entire number of parliamentarians. So we have fully functional parliament, and Lambert Erpik is doing a fantastic job of running it.
Okay. So we do have a question from Raoul Creuset. I hope I pronounced that somewhere close to right. The notion of currency maintains a system of scarcity. How does Asgardia plan to combat inequality, famine, and environmental destruction?
I'm terribly sorry to admit, but I see 3 or 4 questions in this one sentence. I'm not able to answer it in one line. If you want to split it into shorter...
Okay, let's start with currency. And
questions.
Okay, let's start with currency. So Asgardia has the solar.
Solar, yeah.
And so if people are bound by terrestrial jobs at the moment, they're going to be at different income levels. How is Asgardia going to do anything to sort of maintain equity through its citizens so that rich people don't end up with more say in how the future of Asgardia?
Again, for me, this is a reference system which is not quite related to how we shape our society.
Okay.
Solar is a currency, it's a digital currency. It's still being defined. Like we mentioned earlier, it's now referenced to 12 earthly currencies in order to define the exchange rate. In terms of employment opportunities, if somebody gets a job in Asgardia, they get paid in line with what Asgardia offers for specific position. It doesn't depend on where people come from. If people bring in businesses which they want to register in the jurisdiction of Asgardia, then again, they are treated from Asgardia perspective equally, no matter where they come from. If somebody brings in startups and asks for investments, again, the investments is done in relation to the proposed business, and the benefits to the inventor is given in line with the legislation. It has nothing to do with where you come from. That's again, we are coming back to the whole notion that the citizens of the countries which are probably not in G20, so to speak, who have less opportunities in research and development and technology innovation and science, they are going to benefit if their nations recognize Asgardia, because Asgardia would be able to offer jobs and research and innovation and technology development opportunities for their citizens who will remain working in their countries, but they will take all the knowledge and international experience which Asgardia brings and bring it back to their countries without even having left them.
So from YouTube, we've got a question from Ivan Roche, which says, will you claim territorial rights when the lunar settlement is built?
Territorial rights. I would need to consult our legal department to give a very detailed answer to this. My take on it is that we will own the building. I believe that according to Outer Space Treaty, a moon cannot be or any celestial body for that matter, cannot be expropriated by anybody, or orbits cannot be expropriated. The same, like Asgardia is our territory. It's using low Earth orbit to fly, but we're not claiming the orbit, we're only claiming our satellite. So the same, moon cannot be claimed by anybody. It can be used by humanity for peaceful purposes, for the benefit of entire humanity. So we will own the buildings which we will build and we will work, but nobody can own any pieces of the moon. So by the way, those people who sell you certificates online for $20 to give you as Valentine gifts, when you have nothing better to waste your money on, don't believe them. They have no right to do that.
I guess to piggyback on that, same if you buy a star for someone, you don't actually get to own that star. So
it's not even officially named after you.
Yeah. So.
Well, there are actually official titles of celestial bodies. There are. Okay, Jared, help me here. You're here, the astronomer. There is this official Society of Astronomers United. I'm not sure what
International Astronomical Union.
Really leading scientists in the world, and they do officially give names of some very distant stars to some very special people who spend their lifetime achieving something wonderful in space domain for the entire humanity. So that exists, but indeed, please do not confuse it with $20 online certificates. It has nothing to do with reality.
I was going to say, I do have a few friends in my circles that do actually have asteroids named after them, but that does not mean that they get to go out and basically claim that asteroid as theirs. So it's just essentially a name for it. It's not their actual claim. So,
so help me here, Jared. I'm embarrassed because I don't know the official title of this esteemed organization. Who gives official name.
The naming organization of celestial bodies in space is the International Astronomical Union, or the IAU. So everybody basically relinquishes naming control to them, and in some cases, certain astronomers you talk to would say for better, for worse. And also certain mission principal investigators would also maybe take umbrage with that too. But yeah, they pretty much run the gamut gambit in how things operate. Although there is a bit of a skirmish that is beginning to get worse that is happening right now as to who has what authority to call what and other things like that. So even though
I do know a couple of people who have these official names given to them. I know a couple of astronauts who have asteroids named after them. And actually my former colleague who retired now maybe 15 years ago, she was a very prominent expert in the European Space Agency. It was this association's gift to her for her retirement. They named an asteroid after her.
Excellent.
All right.
So kind of go back to talking about Asgardia.
Yes.
Zord on YouTube is asking how many citizens does Asgardia currently have?
Let's be very, specific about the terminology. Citizens, the official title citizens, is still to come. When we talk about the number of people who have registered to Asgardia to date, it's over 1 million. If you open asgardia.space, you would see the exact number. Of those people are people who have accepted the constitution, are the people who confirmed their active residency. That number is also on the on the website. I believe that's over 250,000 by now. Again, please go to asgardia.space for the exact numbers.
Okay, so I have a question related to citizens. Why the cap at 150 million people? It's a fascinating thing. Most countries want to become as big as possible, but Asgardia is like, nope, we're going to be happy with that.
2% of the population of Earth. Population of Earth currently is 7 billion, and 150 million is in the most wonderful meaning of the word, is elite, the thought leaders, the visionaries, those who from the onset, from the beginning, understood the idea and wanted to be a part of it.
Okay, so what happens if you've got 150 million and then you have a birth?
By the constitution of Asgardia, people born to Asgardian citizens become Asgardian by birth.
Okay, so the cap
that's a general definition of the constitution. The citizenship law is still to be developed.
Okay, but the cap for citizenship at 150 is for people of Earth who would like to jump on board, but once you're in, your family is good to go.
You are there with the family. So, Sarah and Jared, are you Asgardian?
I am not yet. You were trying to convince me, Jared.
I signed up way back in the day, but I have not checked in on my account in a very long time. So I will have to go figure out if I'm still in on that. So.
Oh, if you signed, you definitely are in. And now that it's clear that you are such a fascinated person involved in space, we would be very happy to welcome you to be a much more active member of the community.
Definitely, yeah. I'll definitely take a look into it. So, because it seems like a very interesting thing that you folks are doing, and very pushing the edge of what is currently happening in humanity. So it's pretty neat.
And Sarah, I really need you. We have only 15% of women.
Oh, ooh. Wow. Okay.
Exactly.
Now I'm sitting here trying to think of all the reasons why that would be, and part of me is getting angry, so I'm going to go on. Wow, that's a disturbing number.
Again, our dominant demographic is male population in 18 to 35. Why? I have no idea, because actually we have done some inquiries about demographic research, what defines, what else apart from the age group is a common denominator for that group, and it is nothing. It is the most tough group for defining for sociologists, male between 18 and 35. So we cannot tell what brought those people to Asgardia, but they're welcome. We enjoy the fact that people share in the values and the vision. In terms of the other populations, it's more specific because they have other goals. So I, as a woman in one of the top positions, get asked this: what do we do to attract more women? And again, this is a very sensitive thing to say. We are equally open to everybody. We do not differentiate on gender, be it male, female, or undefined. You can also choose other when you fill in your questionnaire. We do not differentiate on the geographic origin or on anything. Like Dr. Shurbeli says when he's asked what do you know about Asgardian, he says, I know one thing: they all own online access one way or another, because otherwise they would not be able to join. Beyond that, we cannot say what's the common denominator of people who came in and joined us, because they come from all countries. You again can see the list on the website.
your
They come
interactive
from
map
all the
is
professional backgrounds.
quite incredible.
And male, female, we have about 1% of the population who define themselves as other, answering the question gender. So when I'm asked what, as a woman in a powerful position, so to speak, powerful position, I do to attract more women, I'm being myself, and I honestly tell them what it is about. We absolutely do not run programs to attract women, because honestly, I myself wouldn't know what attracts women as opposed to men. You're either interested in something or you are not. If you are interested, you're very welcome to join. That's it. Come and join us. And the more we are, the more it's clear for women that they're very welcome. And it's a promising land of opportunities, of equality, genuine equality, where we don't need to promote anybody one against the other, where we appreciate the inputs of every member of the society, and every member gets equal opportunities. That's what it is about.
Interesting.
Okay. Well,
That's pretty cool.
There have been groups who were trying to fight for their rights inside our communities, and they were very disappointed because nobody oppressed their rights.
Yeah.
what are you rebelling against? No, literally,
Yeah.
what are you rebelling against?
That's good.
Okay.
That's good to have that kind of a problem.
Yeah.
In what you're developing. So.
Yeah.
And
But still, women, this is a question. All right. We do have another question, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, from Ben Credible in our chat room, it says, a lot of people in the chat think that this is a scam or some kind of pyramid scheme. What message would you give to those people?
Dear those people, we've been talking now for almost 1 hour. If after everything you've heard in 1 hour, and having had an opportunity to read the website and having seen which kind of people are involved, if you still think it's a scam, it's your free choice to think what you like. I'm giving you information for what it is. You can Google me. There is enough of me on the internet. You can Google people who run the nation. You can certainly read plenty of Dr. Shurbeli. You can read enough about the other core people who are involved. If this still makes you think that it's a scam, I'm sorry to say, it's your problem.
I like it.
There you go. So all the framework is there for you to see. So very, very cool.
Okay.
Some people cannot be helped. Some people look to cause debates. I'm also often asked why there is so much typical Facebook debates in our Facebook groups, simply because we are active on Facebook. We are no better, no worse than any other active community. Unfortunately, it's a fact of life, which I observed since 15 years, that people who have negative things to say are much more active. Why? It's again a sociological matter, and I would love to discuss it with you in detail if you like. I have opinion on all those things, but we're no better, no worse than any active community.
There you go.
I do have one question about you. I have not asked your background outside of Asgardia, or what were you doing before you joined Asgardia?
I worked since early 90s in the European Space Agency in the human spaceflight program. I left there at the end of 2008. Since then, I have written a few books about space for adults and for children. Then I worked for a couple of years for Belgian television. That's the only piece of my career which had nothing to do with space. I was the host of TV show about Russia. I'm originally from Moscow, but I live in Western Europe since early 90s. And then I was invited by Dr. Shurbeli and one of his core team, who is now my immediate boss, head of administration, Dr. Mikhail Spokojny, to join Room, the space magazine. If you go to room.eu.com, you will see that this is the only in the world independent, high-level space magazine where the articles are written by experts, and we welcome opposing opinions. It's room as room for discussion, space for discussion. Therefore, it's Room, the space journal. And we are not peer-reviewed. We have, let's say, second thoughts about the significance of peer review because it's all quite a closed community. We instead, using the expertise of our editorial board, again, on our website, you can see who are the members of the board. I'm sure you'll be very impressed. we select the best articles which are of interest for professional public and also for general public. So you can buy room at Barnes and Nobles and at Millions Dollar Book, I believe is the name of the shop in America. And there I was invited to start working for Room, and as the core team of Room, also Dr. Shurbeli invited me then to join the core team who started Asgardia. Intense work started basically in summer 2016, before we had the opening event on the 12th of October. Actually, to be honest, we were totally unprepared. We didn't know what to expect. We thought that we were like having informal bets on going inside of us, how soon we will get 10,000 people, or if we have a chance to get 100,000 subscriptions, if it happens before the end of the year 2016 or later. We had 100,000 subscriptions in 40 hours, and we were so overwhelmed. Our server was not ready to handle this. We got to 750,000 registrations in about a month. We had to close down the subscriptions because we physically could not handle it. So it was reopened later at a totally different level of engagement from our side. We could not believe the response we got after it was launched.
Wow. Handpicked. I love it. All right. So before we wrap up, we're going to wrap up, I should say, with a question from Bobo on YouTube. And could you tell us the future of Asgardia?
Oh, I can just summarize what I talked about before. There will be fully functioning economy. There will be bilateral recognition with a number of states on Earth, which eventually will lead to membership as a state in the United Nations. There will be settlement in low Earth orbit on a station called Space Ark. It will be the first ever station with artificial gravity. There will be settlement on the moon, and there will be the first human born in space who will be Asgardian. And Bobo, I hope you're with us already.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us and enlightening me about the nation of Asgardia.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll ask my IT team to check, Sarah, if you have sent an application. I need you.
All right, you can come get me if I don't.
And just to wrap up, where can we learn more information about Asgardia? And if people want to sign up, where can they go for that?
Asgardia.space. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
All right.
Excellent.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Lena De Winne. And we also need to thank our Escape Velocity citizens. Everybody's name on there. You allow us to do this show. And we all love doing this. We hope you love watching it, and we thank you so much. And it is because of you that we are able to do this. Our orbital citizens, everybody, thank you so much for being part of the TMRO community. And we hope to keep these names growing. Yes. We'd like smaller and smaller font as we go. All right, speaking of smaller font, we've got suborbital citizens. All right, if you've got a Sharpie or something, get circling your name on the screen there. And finally, we've got the smallest font, just kidding, ground support citizens. And if you would like to help and join the small font brigade of ground support and everybody else, join us at, help us out on Patreon.
Yep, patreon.com/TMRO.
All right, thank you so much for joining us.
See you later.